Welcome back to part 2 of week 6 of Behind the Pole here at Frostburg State, continuing our week of volleyball with head coach Kylie Heyne. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. So as people might know, you had quite a successful career here at Frostburg, and what ended up bringing you to the school in the first place?
I think that similar to recruiting has changed a lot from when I was a student athlete to now being a coach. But I think that going through the whole recruiting process, visiting college campuses and whatnot, I think honestly that what really sold me on Frostburg was the team culture that they had, and the girls in the program at the time, super welcoming, super competitive. All of those things were just really intriguing that I didn't see at other campuses that I was looking at.
And so you talk about being competitive, and in your junior season, you end up being an All-American as a setter, made the Sweet 16, which is the farthest that Frostburg volleyball has ever made it in the NCAA tournament. What do you remember about that season or about your whole career overall of being a player?
That specific season was really special. I mean, it is pretty cool to be part of the program that has the history of going the furthest. But I think it was going back to like the team, the girls that were around me, my coaches, you know, it was always this expectation to do well, but it was always so exciting. Every step was a little bit more exciting than the previous. But I mean, being successful as an individual isn't nearly as fun as it is as a team. So I know I was given the All-American title, but especially as a setter, it's not that it doesn't matter or mean much, but you know, I got that accomplishment because of the people that played with me. It was my defense that made it really easy for me to set, and it was my hitters that scored points. Honestly, that's what it was. So, you know, I think not just getting to the Sweet 16 as a team, but also getting to host, that's a super special experience too. And a long time ago, but it's also a blur. And the cool thing, more or less, that I remember isn't necessarily winning, it's actually losing. But still being able to be on this court and playing against Juniata, who's a great team. And it's almost like the privilege of like, oh my God, I respect this team so much and I get to be on the same court. But then also looking at my teammates and like struggling to just get a pass up sometimes or just get the ball over the net, but like knowing that like this is still such an accomplishment. And that's one of the things that you constantly, I guess, that I took with me as a coach too. It's not necessarily about winning or losing all of the time. It's about just working hard and being excited to compete. So that's what I remember the most.
And you mentioned a little bit about the coaching there, and head coach Peter Letourneau has 145 career wins. He's the all-time win leader here at Frostburg State. Kind of a two-part question. What did he mean to you as a coach, and how did he make you guys successful? And then now being a coach yourself, did you take any lessons from him in the way he coached?
Yes. So Coach Letourneau and Barb, so his wife and also assistant coach while we were here, huge influences. Like, they're my mentors now, and I talk to them very frequently. I think I did not know he was the all-time like win leader at Frostburg, but I guess it makes sense. But I think that just goes so much to speak to who he was as a coach, because it was never publicized. He was super humble, and I think that's what I take away from him. You know, you have to be a humble athlete too, and it's all about the team. But he had this demeanor that you're gonna come to practice, it's fun, like we get to have fun, work hard, and you do your job, and then you get to go on about your life. He always made it a big thing to understand that there's the student athlete, so academics so important, volleyball so important because, come on, we love it, like that's why we're here kind of thing. But then also like this is the environment that you get to learn like life skills, you get to meet some of your best friends. And he had such a good understanding of that and was able to put that into practices, which I hope I do a good job at it, to bring that to the program now. But just like so much, I think that part of what they taught me without even really realizing it is how much I did want to become a volleyball coach.
And when did you know that you actually wanted to be a volleyball coach? After graduating here, ended up going to Cal University of PA to become an assistant coach. Was that kind of when you decided, or was it beforehand?
It was before. So I think I came to Frostburg with the expectation of being a sports psychologist. I wanted to work with Olympic athletes. So I always knew I wanted to stay involved with athletes in some sort of way. You know, I think I really like to figure out how the mind works. But then I think it was more or less like my junior year when Peter and Barb kind of sat me down and explained, like, hey, you're good. Like, you're a good player, but like you're really good at communicating with your teammates, and have you ever thought about coaching? And I was like, I guess I have. Like, I've always coached, you know, like as a player you coach club, you run clinics and things like that, and I've always enjoyed it. I like teaching. So at that point I explained to, like, they always knew what my objective was. So my junior year they ended up leaving here and took the jobs, head coaching jobs at Cal U of PA, and there was, or is, a graduate program that focuses in sports psychology. So they're like, hey, why don't you be a grad assistant, work with the volleyball team there, get some experience on the coaching side of things, but then also get your graduate degree. And I was like, okay, that works. Like, just helping me further along my future plans. And I think going back, like, that's the other thing. They were such mentors off the court too, like setting you up in the best opportunities to further your life and career. Like, that's what you would want in a coach. So yeah, that's how I figured out I wanted to be a coach.
And so following that, you end up moving all the way across the country out to Ashland, Oregon, and the recreational director at a YMCA and a local high school coach. So what was the decision to move all the way across the country, having spent almost all your life in the Mid-Atlantic here?
So I graduated from Cal, and at that time my family had moved across the country. I have a brother and sister that were living in Colorado. I had extended family living in Oregon. So I really didn't have anyone living in Pennsylvania anymore. So what better time to experience like the West Coast than not having a place to move back to? So after I graduated, I moved out to Oregon without a job, just in education. And I ended up working at a YMCA where I got to coach volleyball from like kindergarten level, so like 5 years old, all the way through middle school. Worked at a high school just because I love volleyball and I wanted to stay in it. Worked at a club, worked with the NAIA program there. And it was just so, the experience that I got with that was being able to see volleyball all at the same time at so many different levels. So like really being able to, that helped me as a coach too, to understand like what is the expectation for a 5-year-old and the expectation for, you know, a college player, but then also realizing you can still play the same game and it's just as fun for everybody. It's just like, it brings you back to like when you're a kid in elementary school and you play the same playground game, like tag. Tag is fun no matter what age you're playing. But like volleyball games, they're fun because the sport's fun. So moving out to Ashland was awesome because I got to be close to some family that I've never been close with before. And I got to kind of separate myself from coast to coast and also learn just about different parts of volleyball too.
And so following your trip out to Oregon, you actually end up coming back into West Virginia at the head coach of Davis and Elkins down in Elkins, West Virginia. What ended up bringing you back, and what did you learn from your time there at Davis and Elkins?
So, really cool story. It's like the full circle story. I get a phone call from Peter Letourneau while I'm out in Oregon asking like, hey Kylie, are you still interested in coaching like collegiate volleyball? And I was like, yeah, that was always the plan. Like, you were part of me, like part of the conversation with me when we were like planning my life kind of thing. And he was like, well, the Davis and Elkins College athletic director just called me and they're looking for a volleyball coach, so I provided your name. And I was like, perfect, that's awesome. this entire time I was thinking that Davis and Elkins College was a small school located in Oregon or in Northern California somewhere, and he was just like looking out for me. 30 minutes later, I get a phone call from Jamie Joss, and it made sense because the phone number was from Portland, Oregon. And Jamie Joss, who's the athletic director at Davis and Elkins College, was an athletic director at an NAIA school in Portland, Oregon, and he had just accepted the athletic director position at D&E. So we spoke on the phone, and as I'm talking to the athletic director, I'm like looking up and I'm like, oh, West Virginia, we're not in Oregon, okay. But anyway, like great connection with Jamie Joss. And then, you know, I think that so many times in life, like you're just presented with an opportunity and you got to jump on it. So like, meanwhile, like I had just married my husband like a month previously. He's been awesome because he's literally just followed me wherever my dreams have taken me. And I told him about the phone call and he was like, let's do it. Let's move back. So, I mean, yeah, that was 2015 and we're moving from Oregon to West Virginia. And I got lucky because I got to go on a plane and he had to pack up a car with my dog and take my dog across the country.
So with your time at Davis and Elkins, you and your husband, I did a little bit of research and I found out he was the baseball coach at the same time that you were the head volleyball coach. So does that ever bring up any like competitiveness when you guys are like just being two head coaches in the same roof?
Always, like Mason, my husband, and myself, we have been together for 15 years, almost 16 years. So we were neighbors, we went to the same high school, all of that stuff. We were athletes in high school. Like he was big time football player, baseball player, basketball player. He's just an all around athlete. So we're both super competitive, but we've always worked together. This is the first time that we've never actually worked within the same organization. So even when we were out in Oregon, we were working together. And I think one of the really cool things about our relationship is that we really understand the competitive nature of being an athlete and then also growing into the coaching role together, understanding don't get me wrong, every single season at D&E, it always came back to like whose record is gonna be better. I always won, so that's always a good thing. But I think it's just like always competing against each other, but then again, he's 100, like my biggest supporter. So we have a lot of fun. It can get a little, like we have now 2 little kids, so it's like who can clean up toys the fastest. We try to find competition in whichever way we can, but I think I don't know how I would survive without having a coach as a partner, because you do have to make recruiting calls at night. You do have to make, you're not always there on the weekend, or you have to really adjust your schedule, and he just understands. So it's awesome to have the person that's your biggest competitor also being your biggest supporter.
Absolutely. And so after your time at Davis and Elkins, you get, what brought your interest into being the head coach at Frostburg and coming back to your alma mater? And what was the phone call like with athletics director Troy Dell that you were going to be the next head coach here?
So it's really interesting. Kendall, who is also an assistant coach here, she was my assistant coach at Davis and Elkins. She aspires to be a head coach one day. So I know that there was one day we were sitting in the office together and she asked me, she was like, Kylie, what's your dream job? And I was like, coaching volleyball. Like, that's my dream job. I'm happy. Like, that's the job that makes me happy. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And she said, where though? Like, where is your dream school? Mind you, she's from California. So like, she's like, I want to be somewhere warm, by a beach. Like, that's my dream school. And I was like, to be honest, Frostburg's my dream school. And she was like, really? And I said, yeah, 1, it gave me the best playing experience. 2, it's awesome that now it's a Division II school, or transitioning. At the time, it was like still like the thought process. And it was like, and it's closer to the family that we had. Like Mason's parents still live in Pennsylvania. My brother moved back to Pennsylvania, and I was like, we're closer to my friends and family. So those are the things that are so important to me, friends, family. And then just the tradition and the experience I had here. So that's the dream job, you know? So I guess getting the phone call, though, to answer your question about Troy Dell, I think it was a very nerve-wracking experience, especially because of the pandemic. You know, everything was so stalled. So really you're just waiting around to hear, like, did I get it? Did I not? Like, okay. But I think that it was such a bittersweet moment because, like I said, dream job, but I'm still so proud of what I was able to establish at Davis Nelkins College and the team there. So I think that's the part that was super hard for me.
So you talk about your assistant coach, Kendall Jacobson. You actually coached Kendall at DNA. So what, did she do anything as a player that made you think, you know, she could be my next assistant coach here?
I hope Kendall watches this. So Kendall was a junior college transfer from California in 2015. So she was brand new to D&E when I got that job. I remember meeting Kendall. She was sitting on a bench in the science center, and I go up and I shake her hand, and she's got like this knee brace on, and we introduce each other, and then like getting to see her as a player. She is one of the most passionate and enthusiastic players I think I have ever been able to work with. She came in with the expectation of being a defensive player, a libero. That's what she played in at junior college, but she had a vertical and also power behind her swing on the pin compared to anyone else on the team at the time. And I told her, well, we get to our first tournament and I put her as a 6th rotation outside. She gets subbed out and she told me that was too much cardio. And I was like, all right, so that's okay. So then she was just defense for the rest of that season. And she had a knee injury, but I wouldn't have known that. She didn't, well, I knew she had a knee injury. She would limp all the time, but she never played like anything was holding her back. And just throughout our 2 years together at D&E as a player, the things that she did, now looking back on it, she just had the mindset of, I'm going to compete, I'm going to win, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. She worked through it. She pushed her way through it. She realized I took her out of hitting front row when she said it was too much cardio. She worked her butt off the next year, and she was the 6th rotation outside. Like, that's her mentality. She has a goal, she works for it, and she'll do whatever it takes. So she graduated from D&E, and she spent a year back at home working. She writes me this thank you card that I actually still have, a handwritten thank you card just for coaching her, everything like that. And then I end up finding out that I do have the ability to have an assistant coach at Davis Nelkins, which previously we weren't able to have assistant coaches. And then at that time, I knew her goals were to be a head coach. She's the most passionate, enthusiastic player I've had. And what better opportunity for me to get to be a mentor like my mentors have been for me, for her. So having her back with me for the past 2 years at D&E and now here, it's just really cool to see the growth with her as an individual. I mean, she'll be the first person to say she still hasn't moved on from being a student athlete, but I think she's slowly like realizing that that time has ended, but she will always be passionate about playing. And I think for me, I want to surround myself with coaches that continue to challenge me and help me grow. And she does that for me. And I think that's really cool. She's been able to see me at my lowest points and at my greatest points. And that's what I would always want in an assistant coach.
So when you first started out at D&E, you didn't have the ability to have an assistant coach, and now here at Frostburg, you're actually able to have 2. So Nicole Higgins is now entering her 3rd season here in the program. How much has she helped you to kind of get you back to being inside the program and being around Frostburg athletics once again?
Like you said, going from 0 to 2 is huge. Like, that's a huge blessing. Like, before, I was having a hard time being able to watch an entire court and be able to, you know, help out defense, offense, setter, blocking, all of that. So now I have 2 coaches in addition to myself. So I can have Kendall focus on defense. I can focus on setters. Coach Nikki can focus on blocking or whatever, like whatever we decide to split up in a day. But I think just the history that Coach Nikki has had with the program, especially with the transition, has been great. And then also, like Kendall has been coached by me and has coached with me. Coach Nikki has coaching from so many different places with different club, different colleges, different coach here. So just being able to learn different philosophies and just different coaching techniques is great to help me grow. And once again, like I always see that my role is to help my team, and then also like they're my coaches, but they're also my team, to help them get to where they want to be. So just like Kendall's goal is to be a head coach, I know Coach Nikki's goal is to be a head coach. So my goal is to make them as prepared and as ready to take on that as possible. So I think that just from, it's only been a semester or half a semester, like all of the behind the scenes stuff of like how Frostburg works here has been great. Like she's been super helpful with that, because just because I went here as a student athlete, that does not mean I understand any like procedures or protocols or anything like that. But you know, I think she definitely has a different perspective of how practices run, how team, like just so many different things, which has helped me grow and add to my coaching toolbox.
And so talking about growing a program, and kind of as we wrap up here and looking at, you know, Frostburg had made quite a number of NCAA tournaments, both in your time and then before your time even. So how do you grow the program to get back to those roots, or even competing for conference championships, not even looking at NCAA?
I think obviously you get there by winning, right? So like you got to win to get the record. You got to win to make it to the conference tournament. And then you also have to win to get to the NCAA tournament. But it always starts at the foundation. Like you have to have that culture. You have to have that family feel. You have to have like that team. And, you know, I think that right now working, it's a blessing in disguise to get a season to just like build on that. So being able to get the right people and in the right way too. It's not just about building talent as fast as you can. It's about building that culture. Like I told you in the very beginning, I chose Frostburg. There's so many great things about Frostburg, like a beautiful campus, great location, facilities, like all of those things are great. But like the main reason I really think a student athlete chooses where they want to go to school is because they feel at home. Like this is a place where I feel like I can be myself and be accepted, and this is my family away from home, or this is the family I get to choose, so this is the family I want to choose. So that's where we're starting. We got to start with building something that we're proud of from the foundation, and values that we want to work into and grow into, because anybody can get a team full of talent, but it's not going to mean as much if it's not passionate, if you're not enthusiastic and excited about it. So that's where we're starting, and that's how I plan to get another banner in this gym, is by getting the talent, but more so getting the feel. And we have that. There's girls in this program that want that, and it's building on top of it. And it'll just make it exciting. It's building that culture of greatness. But yeah, it happens, and it can happen quickly, but it will in time.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day, obviously growing a program here and helping your coaches grow into becoming their own head coaches, and for helping us to create our content.
Thank you.